Today I'm going to show you how to do some backwards wood routing, or what we typically call a climb cut. But first of all, let's have a look at some bits. For the purpose of this video, there are two kinds of bits, those without bearings and those with. Without bearings are typically not used for climbing cuts, and today we're going to be using bits with bearings because they require some sort of a guide, which you're going to see as we go along. Just as a quick reminder today, you'll notice the base of this router that I have my finger on here, and you notice there's an arrow, and that is the direction the bit travels. And I have this little portable clock here to show you that the bit travels in a clockwise manner. We always need to keep that in mind. Very important. So as a woodworker, we all know that every tool we use, we drive the wood through the blade or the bit when the blade is coming at the wood. So for example, remember I said this is a clockwise. If this was laying down on our workbench, and the bit would be traveling at a clockwise angle. So if we take this big thick bit here, it would be traveling like that. And in order to route this piece of wood, we would want to start down here and move up, because we're moving, see how we're moving into the wood? The bit is moving into the wood. Now that's what we call a typical basic cut. Now the cut that I'm going to show you today does the opposite. It's the reverse. The bit still going to be traveling the same way, but now I'm going to be going down the wood. And I'm going to show you right now why we want to do that sort of a thing. Now, I selected this piece of wood specifically because it shows the grain very well. Now, if you're in a situation where we're doing, for example, maybe it's a table leg or something that has maybe an angle or some sort of a design to it. And I'm just going to draw something here. So for example, if maybe it comes straight down here, then it might come in here like this, and maybe there's an angle like this, and then it goes back down here. Now, if you look at this wood grain here, you'll notice that this wood grain here is different, and here's where it's different. When that bit is coming up like this, look at what's happening. The wood grain here, it's going to be cutting in the path of the grain. See how the grain is coming up, and that bit is going to be cutting along that grain. It's going to be cutting along with the grain all the way to about here. But look what happens. Now the grain is coming down, and that bit is going to want to be cutting into that grain right there. And when you're cutting into grain, you have a much greater chance of making a very rough cut or chipping out wood. So what we do in a case like that, we do a climbing cut, a reverse cut, and the blade is coming down like this, but very carefully we allow the router to go down this piece of wood like this, and when it does that, it's cutting away the wood. And I'm going to draw you a picture of why that works like that. Okay, I figured out a quick way of doing a demo on this by using my cordless drill, and it goes, the bit in it goes the same direction as a router. So imagine you're looking down on the board, and typically we would start at this end down here and work our way up, and you'll see that bit turn. You'll also hear a bit of noise from the cordless drill. So see how that bit is cutting into the wood? It's cutting in the same direction, always in the same direction of the wood here, and that's where you get a great cut. And it's still cutting into the direction, but right about here, it starts to cut into the wood because the grain of the wood is coming down like that. So when you're doing a climbing cut, you are coming from the back side like this, and you're slowly easing into the wood each time. And that's what's going to give you, in a case like this where you've got some reverse grain, that's what's going to give you that best cut. So I've just taken a moment to put a round over bit in my trim router here, and I'm of course going to be starting here and I'm going to route all the way to about here. Then I'm going to bring the router out, and I'm going to come back over here and start again on this side until I match up there. So there's that cut, and here's where I started, right over here. And you can see how I can feel it, but you can even see how smooth that is. And once I got to here, because I switched and went the other way, again, it's smooth from the other side as well. There's no, typically, if you'd have just kept going like this is where you start getting wood pieces flying out and gouges and so on, is when you're cutting in. See, you would have been cutting into the grain because that bit would have been cutting like that into that grain. But when you cut from the back side, it just makes a much better, smoother cut. And there's a close-up of that climbing cut. You can see the red or the black felt pen there, but you can see it's nice and fine, nice fine cut there. So the main thing to remember when you're doing a climbing cut is that on a basic cut you are pushing the bit into the wood. But when you get to a climbing cut, remember that the bit is going to be running, it's running in the same direction, but now you're moving the router in the direction the bit wants to go. So there's a chance that it's going to want to push the router like this. And that's why it's very important you just make small cuts. The smaller the cut, the better. Always with the router, you want to take tiny cuts. People get into trouble when they try and take too big a bite, too big a cut with the router bit. And especially when you're doing a climbing bit, you just want to take small little bits and take away just a little bit of wood. You're better to make 2 or 3 passes if you can than try and take too much. So now another place where a climbing cut can come in very, very handy is if you're working with veneers and you want to glue them together, and you can see these obviously don't match. So what I would want to do here is I want to make a straight line on both of them, but I'm just going to do one for now just to show you a quick way. Now you can actually flatten boards if you don't have a jointer. This is another way of jointing boards as well. And what I have here is a couple of pieces of MDF. They're 8 inches wide and 3.5, 4 feet long. And what you do with this for veneers, you basically put the veneers inside the 2 pieces of MDF, and I'm going to clamp them together. And you want to keep that veneer sticking out, and you want the top piece of MDF, you want it to be slightly in, because now I'm going to be using a flush trim bit, and the blade, I have the battery out of here by the way, and the blade, the bearing is going to be rolling along the lower MDF, and that's a factory edge down there, so it's going to be absolutely flat. Now very often, and when I look at this veneer, I can actually see that the grain is kind of, it's wavy, it's kind of going in and out. So what I'm going to do on this one, rather than I'm not even going to try and do a normal cut on this. I'm going to immediately do a climbing cut on this because I can see the way the grain is going on this, that it's just going to make a mess of it. So I'm just going to take a moment to clamp this and then we'll cut that. Well, that bit sounded like it was clunking along there. It felt like it hit some, but no, it looks like it's done a great job. I'm going to take it out there and have a look and see. It looks like it's, now it's easy to redo. I took quite a big chunk out of there. You could see how far it was sticking out there. But I just want to have a look and see. No, that's perfect. No, that's excellent. Yep, so there it is. There's a straight, absolutely straight piece of veneer now. So that, I'd have to do the other one as well, but put that together, and then you can actually glue those veneers together. And then, of course, you glue them onto the substrate that you're using. There you go. You can see what a nice, fine, straight job that did. Excellent. Well, and there's an advanced technique for any of you using a router, and all of you should be using a router. It's one of the tools in the workshop that can just do so much. There's really no replacing a router in your workshop. In fact, if you are afraid of routers or you're new to woodworking and you want to know a little bit more about routers and router work, I did a video on that quite some time ago. I'll put a link to that here. You may be interested to go and have a look at that. And maybe if you haven't got a router, maybe it'll stir some interest on you, because it really is something that you can do an awful lot with. I'm Colin Connett for Woodwork Web. Thanks for watching.